What's up, guys? Today we're going to be finally finishing a job I started the other day and doing the right front axle on this 2001 Buick Regal. So after you've jacked the vehicle up and you've got the wheel taken off of the side that you're going to do, which in this case is the passenger side, I'm just going to remove the axle nut right here, which I'm just doing with this little battery powered impact. You also notice I've already unplugged the ABS wire from the hub. That's a good idea since you're going to be pulling on the hub. You don't want to extend that wire and break it. Then once you make sure the axle is loose, we're going to go to the back here, and where the caliper bridge bolts to the knuckle, we're going to remove both of those two bolts, which have 15mm heads on them. There's no need to remove the caliper bracket from the caliper itself because we're not going to be doing anything with the brakes. Once you've removed those two, just support the caliper somewhere, stick it out of the way, but do not let it hang by the hose. Then we'll take the rotor off to get it out of our way. Now, in previous videos, I've shown you how to do this by removing the lower ball joint from the knuckle and swinging the knuckle out. I still kind of prefer that method because you get the most space to pull the axle out. But in this particular video, I'm going to show you the alternative on a Grand Prix to doing that if you don't want to mess with the lower ball joint or if it gets seized for some reason. And that's going to be removing the upper bolts that attach the strut to the knuckle. So once you've got the caliper up out of the way, I just used a big zip tie. But once you've got the caliper up out of the way, you're just going to loosen the two hub to strut nuts up here on the top. Then I'm just going to zip those off with the impact here. The bolt itself should not spin because they're splined into the knuckle, so they should stay still. With that out of the way, you're going to need a hammer to tap these bolts out, which I'm doing right here. Once you've knocked both those bolts out, the knuckle should be free. Sometimes it helps to turn the steering wheel to where it pushes this hub out a little bit. But once you've got it pulled out and the actual axle pulled out of the knuckle, you're going to need to get under it, get back here and pop the axle out of the transmission, which I did using just a regular pry bar. Be prepared, it is going to dump fluid everywhere, so have something under it ready to catch that. Make sure it's not your face. And with that popped out, you can then just grab the entire axle assembly and pull it out like that. Then we're just going to take the new one, which I got in this case from ZZP. Align the splines to make sure it feels good, and then you should be able to push it right back till it stops. Then one good snap shove should get it to seat. You'll feel it sort of snap in, and if you've got it snapped all the way in, you won't be able to pull it back out very easily. Once you've got that done, you're just going to pull the hub back again and feed the axle back through it, aligning the splines with the hub and the axle. Then you just push the hub up like this. Then you just need to get the strut and the knuckle aligned and get the bolts started. They will not push all the way in because, as we mentioned before, they are splined. So you'll have to get them in there a little bit and then knock them in with a hammer, which isn't always the easiest thing to do. Usually though, once you've got one in, the other one is pretty easy to line up. Once you got the two of those knocked in, it's just as simple as retightening the nuts on the top I did go ahead and plug the ABS sensor back in, and there you can also see what happens to cheap gloves when you try to work on cars with them. These are pretty big bolts, so you can tighten them back without torquing them and probably be pretty safe. But if you'd like to torque them to spec, I will put the spec on the screen right now. Then we're just going to replace the axle nut. I'm just cinching it down with the impact. I am not torquing it with that because you want to torque this to spec. It's actually pretty important. Then the little trick that I use to keep the hub from spinning while you're torquing this axle nut is to just take a long pry bar and stick through the wheel studs like that. As you can see, that against the ground will hold it for you. Then you just torque it to spec. Replace your rotor. Then we're just going to cut the caliper down here and replace it where it was. Then you're going to tighten the caliper bridge to knuckle bolts. This is another one that a lot of people just do to good and tight, but if you'd like to follow the spec, I will have that spec on the screen right now. And with that, you just replace the wheel, and that's about it. And that's all there is to it. I showed you a little bit different way to do it that time. The only thing left to do now is I cleaned up really good down there before I put it back together, and now I'm going to wash the car. And other than that, I'm done. So drop me a like, drop me a comment, make sure you're subscribed. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.